Hazrat, I have a question about the Sufis. What is meant by tasawwuf, and how did this originate in Islam, and what is the difference between tasawwuf and true Islam?
In fact, tasawwuf is common to all religions. It's not just an Islamic innovation. And it's something which is born out of some reactions against over-rigidity of the custodian of a faith. This over-rigidity and more emphasis on the form rather than the spirit of a religion always gives birth to Sufism, as it is called in Islam, or crypticism, as it is called in other religions, or movements like introspective study of man himself by delving deep into his own nature, sinking into his own heart, and searching for things and realities of life from within. These are the general motivating forces. Some do it out of reaction against a clergy which has overemphasized form and have forgotten the spirit of the message. Some do it for the sake of searching truth from within themselves, because they believe that man is born with truth and God can be searched from within. One does not have to go outwards, but one can reach God by delving deeper into his own psyche. So these are the two major generative forces which are responsible for Sufism and such like movements. Sometimes the same motivating forces will generate these two types of Sufistic tendencies, create new religions out of the old religions. And they, although they begin with a defiance of form, defiance against form, they themselves generate form afterwards. And a typical case is that of Pauline Christianity. Christianity, which was born with Pauline philosophy, is certainly not the Christianity of Jesus Christ, because all his disciples who were trained and brought up by him, they were of the view that Jesus was a man created by God. None of them believed in Trinity. There's not the slightest evidence. None of them claimed that Christianity is a new religion which emancipates man from the law of God. So herein lies the key to the understanding of Pauline philosophy. St. Paul understood Christianity to be a reaction against Judaism, and reaction in the wrong sense as understood by him, where Jesus criticized those who overemphasize form, like at the end of every decadent religion. It happens that mullahs and rigid people gain domination over the rest, and with the over-rigidity and over-emphasis of form, the spirit is generally forgotten. This was the case when Jesus Christ came. The Jewish leadership had completely become enslaved to form, like the mullahs of today, extremist mullahs of today. They overemphasize the role of beards, long beards, shaven heads, and appearing before and ceremonies, religious ceremonies, just physical bodily movements, and they had no spirituality in them. no search for God, no love of God, no communion with Him. So naturally, Jesus Christ, who was a revolutionary prophet within Judaism, he protested very strongly against this. But he never abandoned form altogether. What he emphasized was that an empty utensil, an empty cup is meaningless. Fill the cup with the spirit and love of God, then your religion will acquire meaning. Otherwise it's meaningless. So Saint Paul thought that he had rejected the requirement or need for the cup altogether. He said, throw the cups away, shatter it. And that is how you will be delivered from slavery to form. So he thought Jesus Christ rebelled against Judaism in all its teachings, all the teachings of the book, which presented law for mankind. It brought a new law and way of life. He said, just love of God is quite sufficient. Love of Jesus Christ, love it is which is important, not the way you exercise, you practice a faith. So sometimes it is not a cryptic movement which is born out of reaction against overmuch mechanized form of religion. Sometimes new religions are born which have no roots in divine teachings. In Islam, Sufism began as a reaction to overmuch emphasis on form after some centuries, not immediately after Rasulullah. Although the Sufis claim that Sufism began with Hazrat Ali radhiyallahu anhu, but it is just a claim. There is no truth, no foundation in that. Sufism came to be born when, in the beginning of medieval centuries, the mullah, the clergy which learned the jurisprudence of Islam as far as the law of Sharia goes, and overmuch emphasized the following of jurisprudence, the form. And many a time it happened that the leaders of these four jurisprudence sects born on the basis of jurisprudence, that is Hazrat Imam Malik, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, Hazrat Imam Hanifa, Imam Shafi. They were the leaders, yet they never abandoned emphasis on spirit and the love of God and remembrance of God. So they were the true Imams. I'm not talking of them. They opened or founded various schools of jurisprudence entirely for the purpose of training and educating people, not to form a rigid class within Islam. But later on, when some generations away from them, their followers it were, and the religious clergy of that period, which overemphasized the adherence to the rigid form of their jurisprudence, the school of Hanafi, the Shafi, Malik, etc. And there were fights, and sometimes violent fights, on differences as small as whether you should say Ameen bil Jar or bil Sir. You should do it loudly or within your heart. And sometimes it is said that those fingers were severed from hands, which of the people who raised their fingers when they recited Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah during the Tahir. while the mosque belonged to those who believe that the finger raising is forbidden. So whenever such man by mistake, appeared in that mosque, he had lost his finger. Now, such strange things are reported, right or wrong. But we know by judging the affairs from the present day mullahs, that such thing could have happened in the past. The same people, even ever worse than before. So they it were who caused a strong reaction against this whole misform. And the Sufis who began the new sects in Islam, they again should be absolved of one-sidedness. Hazrat Maulana Abdul Qadir Sayyidina Abdul Qadir Jilani, he said his 5 times prayer exactly like Rasulullah did. He followed the Sunnah better than all the people of his time. He never considered himself emancipated from following Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, the need for the following of Muhammad Rasulullah. Yet, because he emphasized the role of spirit, communion with God, ilham, love of Allah, sacrifice for His sake, so a new sect of Sufism was born with him. Similarly, there were Naqshbandis, Sohrawardi, followers of Hazrat Sohrawardi, followers of the Chishti. इनके पूरे नाम हैं? हाँ. Anyway, these are the 4 sects who were founded by different great, not only lovers of God, but also scholarly people who followed the injunctions of Islam, not in spirit alone, but also to the letter. Again, it were the generations which were born after them, long after them, which began to overemphasize spirit as against form. So within Islam, a sort of Pauline attitude came to be born. There were Sufis who said, why to pray? Why to keep fast? What is the purpose? Love of God? We would love Him. What else is needed? Purification? We keep thinking ourselves and reforming ourselves through introspection. And that's sufficient. That's the purpose of prayer. We have reached God. God loves us. We go love God. That's enough. So, the difference between them and St. Paul's teaching was that St. Paul completely severed the ties, totally, with the origin of legislation, that is the Quran. That in his case, that was the book, that is Torah. In case of the Sufis, they never did so. There is one point which goes to their advantage. Even the worst period of Sufism, they never severed their ties from Hazrat Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or from the Quran, but the ties were only in name. So they did not dare to rebel like St. Paul rebelled. But still, in all practices, there were some Sufi sects who went so far away from Islam that they could not be recognized as Muslims. Such sects are still found in Albania, for instance, who just consider Islam to be able to walk on cinders, hot burning cinders, on coal, burning coal, and they dance over coal, burning cinders, and they indulge in music and say, you see, these are special powers which have been granted to us by God. So this is what faith is. They never say prayer, they never say keep fast, etc. So similarly, everywhere in the world, there are extremist Sufis who have practically followed the Sunnah of St. Paul rather than that of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is, in short, what Sufism is. Although their different practices within their sects are a subject of discussion in itself. A lot can be said about the differences between Sohrawardi and Naqshbandi and Qadris and others. They have their own understanding and view about how things should be. They're Sufis from mainly from Turkey, who are given over to singing and dancing, and the mad dervishes, are born. They largely come from the Turkish brand of Sufis, who are generally the followers of Maulana Rome. And also, are the Naqshbandis? Largely, I think, they're Naqshbandis. But Hazrat Maulana Rome has also acquired a state of leadership because of his cryptic language. Masih, if you read, sometimes it speaks of such things that it's impossible for virgin girls to read that language. Yet we know that he was a very pious man, and it was his way of talking in parables and allegories. So this is understood by those who know, but for the outsider, the figure of Hazrat Maulana Rome will be very, very, shall we say, difficult to explain.